Hey, I'm Christina Metcalf, and today we're going to talk about the one word no one ever says to a man about his career.
Look at you now, you're alive.
Several years ago, I was interviewing a female entrepreneur, and she told me before we even sat down for the interview, "Glad to talk to you, but there's one thing I don't want you talking about." She was extremely professional and extremely successful. And I wondered, what could it be? What's the one thing that's going to be something she won't want to talk about? So I waited, pen in hand or recorder in hand. She said, "Don't ask me any questions about work-life balance. Don't ask me how I juggle my successful business and my family." And I'm sitting there thinking, ooh, there must be a story here. Then she continued. She said, "I don't want to talk about it because if someone was interviewing a man with a successful business and a family, they would never ask him how he juggles both." And I thought about that. And I thought, when was the last time you saw any of the multi-billionaires being interviewed and asked how they juggle family life? We always just anticipate that there is an army of people behind that successful man, making sure that the home fires are still burning. And so this woman didn't want to talk about the juggle because it's irrelevant to her career, right? Now, while I see her point, I tend to think that even though it's a question most people won't ask men, and that's completely unfair, it's helpful for those of us who are trying to balance work life and family life, whatever that looks like. It's really helpful for someone who's done it to say, this is what I did. Again, I understand why she doesn't want to talk about that because there's an inequality there. But for those of us who are in the trenches, who really want to be doing something amazing and being able to mirror someone else's success through things maybe that they tried, some worked, some didn't, that's helpful to me. But the one thing I want to talk about today is a word that, as a woman, they will tell you to be this, and they would never say that to a man. A friend of mine went to watch a very successful author speak. And afterward, it was a small symposium comprised mainly of women, and the author was a woman as well. Very highly regarded, internationally known author in the literary community. But anyway, she was asked what one piece of advice she would give to women who want to write and become successful authors. And she said, "You have to be selfish. You have to close that door. You have to shut the world out. You have to tell your kids to go make themselves a bologna sandwich or not to disturb you unless there's blood, but you have to be selfish." And when I thought about that, I thought, that's great advice, because if you're raised in a traditional family, our gender is raised to take care of people. If you have children, often it's the woman who sacrifices her dreams, her career, to make sure the children are fed and clothed and sheltered. I know that it's not always that case, but in traditional households, that's how it goes. And so for those of us who want to do something in addition, whether it's a hobby or whether it's a career or whatever, if there's something else you want to be doing besides taking care of the family, we feel selfish when we do it. Most of us do, at least initially. You might be able to get past that, and you should get past that. But initially, we're going to feel like, oh, we're putting our needs and desires ahead of our family. And that is so hard to do, especially when you have littles. I mean, it could be a matter of personal safety for them if you slink behind a closed door, lock it, and just try to pound out a couple of paragraphs while they're running around in the living room. Might not always be doable. You might have to find a mommy's helper or make arrangements with your spouse to kind of, Tuesday's your personal day and maybe they can work from home that day or something. There are flexibilities that can occur in a relationship like that. And if there aren't, then you can maybe pay for help, or if you don't have the money to pay for help, then there might be another mom who wants to do the same thing that you do. And maybe you can switch off watching each other's kids for even an hour, just to give yourself that break to be able to do what you want to do. But while I think this advice is really good, there are times you have to put yourself first. We've all heard you can't pour from an empty cup. But the problem I have with this advice is the word selfish. Selfish has a negative connotation. If a young man who wanted to excel in business came to a mentor and said, how do I get to be where you are? What do I need to do? Do I need education? Do I need funding? What do I need to be you? Chances are that older mentor would never say to that young person, you need to be selfish. They might say, you need to put your personal life on hold because you need to focus on your business. They might say, you need to be committed, like really want it. They might say you need to be hungry. There are thousands of words they would use to describe what you need to do to succeed in something like business. But the one thing they probably would not say to a young man looking to be successful, they probably would not say to him, you need to be selfish. Because the idea is that he should be out there. He should be pounding the pavements. That's his dream. That's his goal. So he's merely following along in the progress. He's not being selfish. He's not putting his own needs first. He's simply doing what he's supposed to do. When you tell a woman she needs to be selfish to succeed, that's basically saying you need to be first in your life. And there's a negative thought behind doing that. Like selfish is a negative word. When was the last time someone said, oh, you're such a selfish person? And you went, thank you. I appreciate that. No. When was the last time you said, today is my selfish day. I'm going to be selfish. And the people around you went, that's terrific. You should be selfish. No, it has a negative connotation. Think about it. If you were being set up on a blind date and you're asking your best friend, so what's he like? Tell me, is he good looking? Is he rich? Is he smart? Is he funny? You're asking for any one of these words. And they say, he's very driven and he's very selfish. Now, are you going to be like, great, sign me up? No, you're going to be like, oh, that means every Valentine's Day, I'm going to be sitting there waiting for him to get home from the office. Selfish is not a good word to describe someone. So the fact that this author, this incredibly successful author who made it in a boys' club, the reason I'm referring to writers as being a boys' club is because before social media, the true really successful people in the literary crowd who made money doing what they did, a large percentage of them were male. Women might have dabbled in the arts. They may have been very, very skilled. I'm not discrediting their skill, but to succeed in the arts, you have to set aside time for your work. And traditionally, these women had very short periods of time. Many women published under men's names because they wanted to be taken seriously. They didn't want people to think what they were writing was just some fluffy bunch of words. So the fact that this woman who came up in a time where the top echelon of literary artists was largely male, the fact that she said, you need to be selfish, hurts my heart a little bit. Now, if words weren't so important to writers, maybe I wouldn't think about it at all. I'd just take it for what she meant, which was you need to put your art first. And that's a good message. That's a strong message, even today. If you want to write, you can't write when you're in the grocery store. You can't write when you're cleaning the floors. It's not a task you can multitask. It's not like listening to an audiobook that you can sit there and do while you're in car line. If you want to write, or any number of goals that you have for your life, you want a successful business or whatever, those kind of things often can't be multitasked. You need to concentrate and put one foot in front of the other to attain whatever goal it is that you're looking to do. But the fact that we are telling women they need to be selfish to do these things, while the message is important, the word is incorrect. Because we don't tell our sons to be selfish. My son wants to go into high finance. He was a budding capitalist. He wants to work those grinding hours that they do in the stock market when they're first starting out, those first couple of years where they're working 80-hour work weeks. He wants to do that. And I've told him, you're going to have to put your personal life on hold to accomplish those things. You're not going to be able to say to your employer who wants you to stay an extra 5 hours after the bell rings, you're not going to be able to say, I have to go home and walk my dog. You're going to have to want that more than other things in your life. You're going to have to prioritize that work. So let's stop telling our daughters they have to be selfish. I'm not telling my son he has to be selfish. I'm telling my son what he's going to have to prioritize, what he's going to have to focus on. So let's start telling our daughters what they have to prioritize and what they have to focus on. And if you want to be a writer, that was what I wanted to do as a goal. You want to be a writer, you want to be a speaker, you're going to have to close that door. You're going to have times where you tell your family, hey, dinner's on you guys tonight. You need to figure that out. I'm working straight through till 7 o'clock. And we have to get creative sometimes with how we do that. We need to figure out what time we can steal that time from, because, you may have responsibilities. You may have carpool. You may have a job that you need to work around, that you're trying to get to, you're trying to make your side hustle your main hustle. That's fine. But I'm not going to tell you have to be selfish to do it. You have to be dedicated, and you have to make choices, and you have to choose one thing over another, even if it's just for an hour or half an hour. But it's not selfish. You are doing this so that you have something to give the other people in your life, so that you have passion to bring back to your other job. So let's cut that word selfish when we're referring to following our dreams as women. I don't care what the dream is. You have to prioritize time for it. And that's great. And you should. But it's not selfish to do it. What do you think? Are we being selfish? Tell me.